stand with. That's not our job, all right? Stop with all that. If you have a critique for the resistance, for our resistance, then you better have an established record of critique of our oppression.
What stands out to me is just watching the Republican convention, and they're spewing this fear, right? Like, all you hear is Donald Trump and all of them talking about fear. We're the ones getting killed. We've been hung, we've been shot, and all you do is keep hearing about fear. It's amazing to me why we keep loving this country, and this country does not love us back.
Yes, it is amazing that we do keep loving this country, and that is why we are here. We are here. Welcome to Kick the Narrative Part 2. I am your host, Willie Epting Jr. This broadcast is being brought to you by Fork Talk Eatery. No other way to say it, but their food is absolutely #Forkin' Delicious. Call them today at 469-358-5241 or visit them on Facebook at Fork Talk Eatery or Instagram at Fork Talk 3000, and buy amazing Amazon deals. Just go to bgcsports.net and take advantage of some amazing deals being offered by our Amazon affiliate. And lastly, you can follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, and Instagram at BGC Sports 1, and subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel at BGC Sports Network 1. All right, man. We got a lot to get into. I got my BGC Sports family with me behind the boards, the dopest engineer in the game, Big Day. This sick show on the 11s and 5s, Monday through Friday. To my left, or to my right, to my left, Sports from Her Perspective, Natalie Hicks. What's going on, Natalie?
Nothing much. How are you? Just happy to be here.
I am very happy to be here. I am very glad to hear that you are happy to be here. And across from me, the man, the myth, the point man himself, on point with Charles Boyd. What's going on, Charles?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can somebody hear me? There we go. Hey, yo, there it is, man. What's up, people? How y'all doing?
And finally, to my right, he is the man along with the her in Sports and Her Perspective. They are the Archie Bunker, or actually they are the Pam, they're the Pam and Martin of Sports Talk Radio, and that's Cori Hicks. Cori, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, Willie? Great to be here, man. It's just glad another opportunity to get together with you guys and just talk about some things that affecting the world more than just sports, and just chop it up a little bit.
Yeah, and that is what we are here to do, my friend. Everybody's Sports from Her Perspective. Twitter at Sports from Her, IG at Sports from Her Perspective, and Facebook Sports from Her Perspective. Cori at Mr. Sportsopedia, the coolest name ever. Instagram at Mr. Sportsopedia. Charles Boyd, Twitter at Chuck is on point. IG Mr. Chuck B. Facebook on point with Charles Boyd. And the dopest engineer in the game himself, that would be this sick host on Twitter. Yes. And again, I'm Willie Epting Jr. I have the #Brothers of Baseball show right here on the network, 12s and 6s, Monday through Friday. And I also have the Shake Back Sports show. That's 10s and 4s, Saturday and Sunday with my co-host, Marquesson Huff, as well as Corey Ellenson. So, man, we're going to get into this because this is what we do. And there's been a lot of things going on in our country, in our world, especially during the pandemic that we're going to get to later on in the show. But we're going to start this thing out by talking about the shooting that took place up in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and the fallout from that. The shooting took place on August the 23rd of this year, of course. And just in case you have been so socially distant or otherwise hiding under a rock, or maybe you were at your residence on Mars, this kid got shot in the back 7 times by Kenosha, Wisconsin police, and now is paralyzed from the waist down. So, here we go, brothers and sisters of the BGC Sports Network. Let's go to Natalie. Tell it from particularly a mother's point of view, how this has affected you as a mother.
Okay, so as I said the last time we were on, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm sick and tired. This is just, it's too much. Every day, every week, it seems like somebody else is getting shot. I mean, what more do we need to do? I mean, at this point, I'm just kind of lost for words. It's really nothing more for me to say other than I'm tired.
And that sentiment is echoed by hundreds of thousands, if not millions, other than a select certain few amount of people out there that seem to think that this was justified. Charles, you are a young man that's closer to this gentleman's age than I am for sure. As a person of that age, what can you identify with the shooting, and how has it made you feel?
To be honest, man, it's been quite emotional because you connect with guys like that when he's trying to just simply live his life. He's trying to be a young man. He's wanting to take care of his family. He wants to provide. That's what he's doing. From my perspective, what I saw from the video, it looked like family was out there. He was attending to his kids, doing whatever he needed to do to ensure his kids were having a good time. And all of a sudden, he is faced with an encounter with the police. With that being said, you just are taught to cooperate with the police officers. You're taught that. To me, it seems like he didn't present any threat. Let me say that. There was no threat, and we've seen this time and time again. So that's where the outrage is coming from. It's coming from we've been told to not present a threat, to not go and not be, I guess, rebellious towards police officers.
Belligerent.
Yeah, being belligerent, things of that nature. And then all of a sudden, this happens. You still get gunshots to the back. Thank God he didn't pass away, but his life is forever affected now by this, and he's paralyzed. And it's unfortunate because all you were doing was being amongst your family. And I can't make sense of it, and I can't make sense of any of these situations of why they're continuously happening this way. That's why the changes need to happen. That's why we need to have conversations like we're having to figure out what's the move going forward. What do we need to do? What needs to happen? So.
Yeah, and as you were talking, I was reminded of my mic is hitting me in the face. I was reminded of how it all unfolded and what we saw in terms of the video, and like you said, it did not appear that he presented any immediate threat. His back was turned, and he reached into his car for what they said at that point was a knife in there. Cori, you're probably the elder statesman of this crew here at the table. Maybe not. Tell me how you feel, man. Just tell people how you feel.
It's just really getting harder and harder to wrap your head around all of these senseless shootings. Because the couple videos that did surface, there was some tussle going on. There's 4 guys follow him around the car. They shoot the guy 7 times. And you start to wonder if your life was at danger or threat, why not tackle him before he gets to his vehicle? And does it take 7 times to shoot an individual to stop him? So it's almost now you start to wonder, their motto has always been protect and serve. I mean, what are you really protecting and serving once you show up? You're shooting and killing or shooting and maiming before you ever protect and serve. So I think it's just hard to wrap your mind around everything that is going on, and then some of the explanations you're getting, because as soon as something happens, they want to pull out these people rap sheets. And what did that have to do with that particular incident, regardless if, I think they said he had some arrest warrants or something. But what did that have to do with that particular incident at that point in time where that young man deserved to be shot in the back 7 times? So my mind is just hard to wrap around some of these shootings and some of these explanations we're getting when video is clearly showing that there was no threat or danger to the officer. They're just like being judge, jury, and executioner on the spot.
Yeah, and when you mention about the quote-unquote criminal activity, they did have a warrant out for his arrest back in July for 3rd-degree assault, sexual assault, criminal trespass, and disorderly conduct. But still, like you said, he wasn't posing any sort of immediate threat. And this is the part that I left out. And 2 or 3 of the 4 people at this table have children. So this all occurred with his 3 children sitting in the back seat. Now, from a parental standpoint, or actually from a kid standpoint, if I were to see that happen, not just to my dad, but anybody, that would be a situation that is going to take a whole lot of prayer to get through, because you're scarred. And these are kids, Natalie.
Exactly. That's why I say, from a mother's standpoint, you're sick and tired of this, and then what is it that you can say to a child to comfort them from seeing something like that, especially if it's a parent? What do you say? What can you say to comfort that child? What can you tell them?
I mean, there's really nothing you can say. And I know, Charles, you don't have any children that you have birthed yet. So, if it were, yeah, I'm speaking into existence.
Right, yeah.
So if you were because Jacob's uncle has been very outspoken about this event. Yeah. So you take it from an uncle standpoint. On point. Standpoint. Go ahead.
Right. So, I am an uncle. I have several nieces and nephews, and let's be clear about this. I mean, the women are just as much at a disadvantage as men are. So it's just people of color altogether. Right. So from that perspective, when I do have the opportunity to talk to my nieces and nephews, I do try to give them that wisdom and knowledge, just to be aware. You have to be aware of what type of world you're living in and what could possibly happen when you are encountered with police officers. So, and it's crazy that it's something that has to really be talked about. It's baffling to me because, like, to Cori's point, he was talking about how police officers are supposed to protect and serve. And I want to teach my kids, I want to teach my nieces and nephews that they're here to help, but that's not always the case. There was a post and everything circulating, going around on Facebook, that mentioned that was talking about how if you are afraid in this role and in this job, then maybe you shouldn't be in it. And I couldn't agree with that more. And it's sad that it's that way, but it's almost as if these police officers are very fearful. So I know the biggest thing everyone is pushing for is some sort of change. For me, I think the biggest thing is police reform. That has to be something that needs to be redone, because I've talked to police. I have friends that are police officers, and they tell me themselves that whenever they get into a situation where it's time to draw their weapon, they're taught to kill. There's no shoot to wound this person. There's pull your gun, shoot this person, and shoot to kill them.
But that should be the absolute last resort.
Absolutely. I totally agree. It should be the last resort, but that's not what's happening.
Right.
So that piece, that training needs to be redone. Maybe how they're communicating.
Is that on everyone, though?
Yeah, that's what I was going to point to. But before you get in, Natalie, I wanted to give Cori the last word from a father's perspective about your kids being in the back and this happening to you. I mean, you're paralyzed. You're never going to be able to play ball or play catcher with them again. I mean, what would you say to them in a situation like that?
The kids are going to be traumatized, and I think more and more. And I think back to, there was a video that this was right after George Floyd incident, and there was a video was surfacing on Facebook where there was a young kid, African American kid, outside playing in the yard, just routine shooting basketball. His dad was doing something in the car. Police car comes. The kid runs and hides. Dad asks him. And he's like, I'm afraid of the police.
Wow.
And I think we're at a point now where this is happening so much where, On Point was mentioned, he talks to his nieces and nephews about being able to protect and serve. But now, are these kids going to truly go, if they're their lives are in danger, they're going to go to the police and say, hey, can you protect and serve? And they're not going to go. They're going to go away from them, because their first thing is they've seen so much in the last couple months and years where police officers are just shooting unarmed black youth for no reason at all. And then you hear the other thing, well, don't resist. I mean, you're not resisting when someone's shooting you in the back. I mean, what threat or pose?
Or they have their knee in your throat.
Yeah, or you can't move.
Yeah, and I just
literally.
think at this point, the thing of it, those kids are going to be traumatized for the rest of their lives, and I think you're losing a whole generation where they're not going to trust and believe in any law enforcement. And now with all this other stuff going on with like black to back to blue and all this, you're going to create more division than you are going to unify this. So we got to just look for a way to unify all this.
Natalie, I'm going to come back to you in just a second, but I want to piggyback on what you said as a father. And this happened just this week in my household. Our son Blaze is a senior at Rockwall Heath. And, you know, he's driving my car to school, which, you know, that's another show for another day. I need to give him something that he can beat up. But anyway, you know, he walks out of the house with his hood on. And I said, Blaze, are you driving with your hood on like that? He said, yeah, sometimes I do. I said, don't do that. Do not do that. I said, you know, me and your brothers got stopped for the same thing when Cameron had a hood on, and we were just going to a restaurant. So I told him, look, be smarter than they think you are. So, Natalie, you were going to point to about what Charles was talking about as far as the training.
Right. And my question is that for everyone, or is that for just African Americans? Because it seems as though that's the only people that they're truly shooting to kill. Because, I mean, how many white men have we heard of being shot here recently?
Yeah, it's crickets.
Right, yeah, for real. Yeah, I think it should be for everyone. You know, that's what it should be for, but that's
It's
just
not.
unfortunately not the case. Yeah, it's just not the case. But it's sad, but it definitely needs to be something put in police training. And it's crazy that I'm saying this, but to say how to deal with African American people, maybe they need to be a little bit more inclined or more aware of how we are, I guess. It's funny that I'm saying this. I'm saying it, and as I'm saying it, I can't believe that I'm saying that.
Right.
Especially in 2020.
Right, in 2020, but it's real though. It's
real.
absolute real thing. We're gonna something has to be adjusted or redone in terms of how you deal with African American people.
You know, as they say, history repeats itself. You know, you're watching the things that happened to, you know, probably our mothers and fathers back in the 50s and 60s. And it seems as though now we're going through the same thing, but the only difference is, you know, you have a lot of camera phones out now they're recording what's going on. But, you know, it's just sad that we're seeing the same thing happening again, and with no resolution in place. Because nothing has happened since then, even the 50s and 60s, and you're in 2020, and the same things are going on.
Or do we have a part where we're going to talk about the Kansas City thing, the Kansas City and Houston, Texas game?
Yeah, we're going to get to that as far as the fallout. But what
I was going to say something, I'm gonna hold it.
No,
I'm gonna hold
go
it.
ahead,
No,
go
no,
ahead.
I'm gonna hold it. I'm gonna
You
wait
all-
till we get to that part. Yeah.
All right, so what I wanted to move on to the next was the fallout, the continued fallout, and that, of course, refers to the shooter, the 17-year-old shooter who went from Antioch, Illinois to Kenosha, Wisconsin, probably about a 30-minute drive. Went there with the idea of protecting property. While he was there in the mindset of protecting property, he shot 2 people and killed them, and shot a third person who actually still is alive and actually doing interviews. So
what property did he protect?
you tell me, what's your perspective?
So
No, go ahead, Natalie.
I really, you know, with that, I really don't have any words for him either, because my question is, first of all, why would you drive to protect property that you don't have in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and you walked around with a gun and nobody stops you? It's like Wild Wild West, you know, just pull up your rifle and just shoot the black man that you see running.
Well, he actually shot the one that survived. He's actually a medic by the name of Gage Crosskritz, and that sounds, I don't know what that is, but
It's not Caucasian.
well, whatever color it was, he got shot. You know, he's from West Allis, which is somewhere up in that area. 26 years old. He was the only one that survived. And Charles, you were going to say something behind what Natalie was talking about, so go ahead and give the listeners what they want.
I'm just trying to figure out, like, what tipped you off to drive 30 minutes, right, to go protect property that's not, to my understanding, it's not his, right?
Right.
So what tipped you off? What phone call? What Facebook tweet? Whatever? What happened? in order for you to say, let me jump
His
in the
homie
car,
called him and told him to come on down.
come on down here, drive 30 minutes, and come shoot up some folks.
Basically.
But I think that's just the dangerous undercurrent that's in America now. There are so many militia, mafia, what is it, one they were talking about, a lot of people talking about the
Antifa.
Antifa and the QAnon, all these different conspiracies that, unfortunately, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is fanning the flames on, that you have so many different segments of this instead of trying to bring everybody together, which you're basically, or as a rally cry, which I think has been his rally cry this whole 4 years, is there's a certain segment of the American population that is unwanted, and for political correctness or reasons, the police can't deal with it. We'll have these militia type groups handle it, because if you look at that particular night with Kyle Rittenhouse, after the shooting, as their armored vehicles were riding into to put out this violent protest or riot or whatever you want to call it, this kid was walking down the road with a long arm gun, and not
AR-15.
Not one police officer
Man.
vehicle stopped him. He went all the way back back home, and then the next day he was able to turn himself in. But we know if that would have been the other way around, there would have been a bloodbath.
Oh
in the
yeah, I
street.
was gonna say it would have been an onslaught, like just at that moment. But that's the point that I'm getting. Like that point right there is when we see all these things going on, we have to pay attention. And us as African American people, I think we may have to take a step back and not be so quick to be emotional, right? So a lot of times these things happen, and then our first reaction is to be emotional. We're upset, and we're okay. We should be allowed that. That's true. I understand that, but I think what needs to happen going forward, we need to become smarter with what's going on and what we see happening, right? So if we see this stuff, we just pay attention to everything that's going on. Just like Cori was talking about, you see all these groups that are almost brought in to, in a sense, wage war against American civilians. That's essentially what's happening. So as black people, we're looking at them and why are they able to walk around these streets and there's police here, but yeah, you got AR-15 strapped across your chest. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and let me say this too, because America and the entertainment industry has a way of fanning the flames without really you seeing the fan. All you see is the flames and the smoke from the flames.
Thank you.
And
That's a good point.
what I mean when I say that is this. If you guys haven't noticed how A Time to Kill has been replayed on television the last several weeks, how Higher Learning with Ice Cube and Christy Swanson and all those people has been played over and over again over the last few weeks. And Cori, I wanted to piggyback on what you said again. I like, I don't know, man. I can strap. Never mind. Never mind. But anyway, I wanted to piggyback on what you said about him being Kyle Rittenhouse being able to go home and turn himself in. He said, or his attorneys are saying that he acted in self-defense. And when you said 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue,
Yeah, I wanted to say
Washington,
that's
D.C.,
wrong
whatever the
address.
zip code it is, the person or the people that reside at that location came out and said or defended Kyle Rittenhouse's actions. So if you have the president of these United States of America that's saying that basically what he did was okay, but everything that happened with that sparked this whole thing is not, that kind of tells you, and I call them the Trump cycle or Trump disciples, not disciples, Trump disciples. If he tells them that he is the Messiah and he's in the desert, I'm just watching to see how many of them gonna follow him.
All of them. They'll be
Bruh,
there.
But I'm sorry, Cori, but that's exactly my point. That's what you're saying. Exactly my point. Like we have to be smarter than what we see that's going on. Like I said, because there's a lot of conditioning that's happening from media, entertainment, all that stuff. Is a lot of conditioning that's going on. So we definitely, as a people, have to be a little smarter and figure out, okay, let's not feed into it, but let's figure out a way how to respond.
And the response that we'll get into, because I know we're coming up on a break here very, very soon. The response is going to be the visit to Kenosha by Donald Trump, President Donald Trump. Actually, somebody called him candidate Donald Trump. And then they called Biden President Joe Biden. But anyway, they both made trips up to Kenosha essentially in the same weekend. If I'm not mistaken, they were on back-to-back days. Or it may have been the day in between. So we're gonna talk about that as well as we come back on the other side of the break as soon as I start hearing the music. But I didn't want you to get into that, and then we have to switch the rhythm, chopped and screwed or whatever you want to call it.
Mr. Sportsopedia, I will tell you did give that address incorrectly. It's not 1600 Pennsylvania.
No, I'm Black Lives Matter,
Thank
whatever.
you.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Wait a minute, what I missed?
It's not.
No, he said that's the wrong address. The White House. The address to the White House.
It's 1600 Black Lives Matter way.
Oh, that's what I missed.
Say it right.
Right over my head. Right over my head. Well, I mean, we having a good time out here, man, as we kicking the narrative. Myself, Willie Epting Jr., the dopest engineer on the planet. Big Dave back there behind the boards. Natalie Hicks, On Point, Charles Boyd, and Mr. Sportsopedia, Cori Hicks, man. We all in here. Shout out to Miss Day back there, man. She helped us get hooked up with the setup. So,
Wi-Fi code.
Yeah, got the Wi-Fi. All right, so I hear the music blaring in the background, man. Y'all come on back. We have to take a quick break, but we shall continue this conversation as we absolutely kick the narrative here on the BGC Sports Network. So y'all come on back and holler at us.
Hey, but
BGC Big Deals just became amazing. Introducing amazing Amazon deals with Amazon savings virtually on everything. Just go to bgcsports.net and click on the amazing Amazon deals page and absolutely take advantage of the deals being offered by Amazon. From the station that might need to change its name to Amazing, we are the BGC Sports Amazing Network.
Can't remember what a home-cooked meal tastes like? Want a meal just like Mama's? We're talking about ribs, chicken, and deep-fried catfish with all the fixings. Fork Talk Eatery will have your mouth smacking and your fork talking. Whether it's large or small parties, they do it all. Call Fork Talk Eatery at 469-358-5241 for all of your catering needs. You can also find them on Facebook at Fork Talk Eatery and on Instagram at Fork Talk 3000. Fork Talk Eatery. It's forking delicious.
Imagine how amazing it would be to send a high-quality advertisement of your business, product, or service to be seen on any internet-enabled device that would display on the most popular social media platforms. Introducing proximity advertising from the Next Generations Marketing. Interested? Then send an email to Marvin Cashaw at info@thenextgenerationsmarketing.com. It's the next level in marketing from thenextgenerationsmarketing.com.
Feeling stressed? You're not alone. Stress is an unpleasant part of life. I'm Randy Peak, founder of Cotipause. Cotipause is committed to providing individuals, groups, ministries, and businesses with grace-based solutions. Visit cotipause.org today. Discover real solutions for real life. Don't just survive, thrive. That's cotipause.org. KATAPAUSE.org.
Allstate now has deeper savings, and deeper savings require deep thoughts and a deep voice, like mine. Save for being a new customer. Save more for adding DriveWise, and save even more for driving safely. Visit allstate.com or contact your local agent for a quote today. As someone once said, saving today is money tomorrow. That's deep.
Not available in every state. New customer savings based on early signing discount. DriveWise is an optional feature. Savings vary based on how you buy. Subject to terms and conditions. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
And we welcome you back to Kick the Narrative right here on the Big Game Christian Sports Network. Man, we are holding it down, man, rolling 5 wide as we have Big Day, the dopest engineer on the 5th rock from the sun, holding it down behind the boards. Natalie Hicks, what's going on?
Nothing much.
Charles Boyd, what's happening?
What's happening? My mic never on. Why is my mic never on? Hey, how y'all doing?
May have to rescind that title as the dopest engineer on the planet if that keeps happening. Cori Hicks.
What's happening?
Yeah, Willie Epting Jr., man. let's continue our talk, man, about the racial injustice and the police brutality that's continuing on in our nation. In the first segment, of course, we talked about Jacob Blake and Kyle Rittenhouse, the fallout. But later on, the two presidential candidates went to Kenosha, Wisconsin, the scene of the alleged crime. By the way, the officers still have not been charged. Trump went first, and I believe he actually went up there on, was it the 1st? Or what? I think it was September the 1st. But he went up there to address the police department. Let me say that again. He went up there to address the police department, and he is the quote-unquote law and order presidential candidate. Charles, what was your take on Trump going to Kenosha when the mayor and the governor, the mayor of Kenosha and the governor of Wisconsin said, hey, man, we don't want you coming through here? Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Well, I think, well, it's two parts to that. One is the mayor and the governor not wanting him to come up there. Because we've seen this in the past where, you know, there is things, these protests are kicked up like shoes. I think they just now kind of stopped protesting in Oregon. Yeah. You know, so they were protesting like from the moment George Floyd was strangled and killed, they've been protesting just nonstop. So at this point, I think they were trying to avoid another situation like this because Trump wasn't going to make the situation any better. You know, so that was the issue with that. So that's if I'm the mayor and I'm the governor, I wouldn't want that either. I mean, you gotta give these people an opportunity to be able to calm this situation down. And Trump is sad, but that's how they're viewing him. They're viewing him as a person that's not going to make the situation any better. He's just going to incite. Yeah, he's gonna fan the fire. That's what it is. It's gonna keep bringing oxygen to the fire, and he'll say something that's gonna be crazy. And that's probably leading into probably Cori's point, we was talking offline about something that could potentially happen in the near future that could affect the election. So I think kind of that's what's happening in that situation.
Yeah, and what are we, 50 some odd days away from the election?
Around 50, around a little less than 50 days there. But I think what me and On Point was talking about offline is where there's such a strong undercurrent, especially with these militia groups, that in these next 15 to 20 days, it wouldn't be a surprise, I hate to say this in America now, but if there was some type of civil unrest to just unsettle the whole thing so we could push off the presidential election. And I mean, when you looked at when Trump visited Kenosha, he never reached out to Blake's family because he said he did not want to talk with them because there were lawyers involved. And I'm thinking, why wouldn't there be lawyers involved? So he didn't never want to reach out to him. But as you said, he went to the police station, and even after the mayor and the governor and all those asked him not to come, he still shows up, and still with the divisive rhetoric that he always uses, which creates that. So I think instead of, as a president, you would look for someone to try to unify the country, unify that community. It's more that divisive talk about what's going on. And then you look at it, when Biden went a couple of days later, he at least did reach out to somebody in the Blake camp and say, hey, let's talk, even if it was for a political standpoint or whatever you want to call it. At least he did reach out and put that olive branch out there to say, hey, let's try to unify this to make this right. I mean, you don't know how sincere he was with that to say whether he was right or wrong, but at least he did reach out to that family and say, at least I'm sorry, at least something. Something.
And Natalie, I wanted to bring you in on this part because your husband said extend the olive branch. So I'm going to take the olive branch from him and extend it to you. I don't know if you want it since his hands was on it, but that's another story for another day.
Well,
go ahead.
I'm going to tell him you're wrong about President Trump. He said he did reach out to them. They didn't answer the phone.
Okay.
That's that guy.
That's actually worse, in my opinion. But go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, don't talk wrong about y'all president. At any rate.
She telling us not to talk about wrong about our president.
Y'all's
go ahead.
president.
Go ahead.
You know, I kind of agree with what Charles Boyd said, but the one thing he never should have gone, Trump should have never gone, because he wasn't going to do anything but just incite and make it worse by showing up. So my advice to everyone out there that's listening and to everyone that's here, in the words of Mamala, vote like you've never voted before.
Very, very important words. And I've pleaded with the younger generation because this is really in their hands.
Correct.
I mean, the 18, 19-year-olds, this is in their hands. And, I've told that generation, look, get in the car and go grab 2 or 3 of your friends and then have them grab 2 or 3 of their friends and y'all make sure y'all get to the poll. Even if you have to go in early voting, get to the poll because
first, make sure you're registered.
Make sure you're registered, correct. And if you are, and I'm assuming that everybody is that I'm talking to, but good point, Natalie. And if you guys do that and turn out in droves, because there's 2 things, and we're probably getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but I feel the spirit, so it's okay. 2 things that are important with this. Number 1, Donald Trump did not address any systemic racism in his visit to Kenosha, which to me is a further tactic of division. And then number 2, speaking of that, he is banking on the fact that African Americans, Latinos, or whoever the minority is not going to get out and vote. I don't know if y'all know this. We are a sports network. We are a Christian sports network first, but we are a sports network. And I know y'all like stats. 2016, 6 million registered voters did not vote. And then you had the commercial with Pete Carroll saying he's only coaching to win 60% of his games. Deshaun said he's going to throw passes 60% of the time with his left hand. So basically, if you're not in the game, you can't play. And I had somebody tell me on social media not that long ago, well, I'm not going to vote. And then they came back and said, well, I won't have a right to complain either. I'm like, man, just pick the lesser of 2 evils that's in your spirit. You know? So, man.
Well, I'm going to say this. Like we said, vote like you've never voted before. If you're registered, definitely go out and vote. If you don't know if you're registered, go and check and make sure that you are. Whatever state you're in, go to your Secretary of State's website. I know you all have iPhones, Androids, whatever it is, iPads, whatever. Check and make sure you're registered. If you're not registered, go register so you can make sure and vote.
Yeah, and one more final point on their visits to Kenosha. Well, not necessarily the visits, but the influence of the visits or lack thereof. I'm really floored as to how many people have condemned the rioting and the looting, but they are in no way addressing the events that led to the rioting and the looting. And since Trump didn't address systemic racism in his visit or on his visit to Kenosha, that tells me that he thinks that it doesn't exist. So we're going to move on, man. Daniel Prude, yet another black man unarmed, yet another black man killed or dies at the hands of police officers, this time in Rochester, New York, 43 years old. And you know what, guys? This incident actually happened 3 months prior to the George Floyd incident. And the Ahmaud Arbery event happened in between those 2. Here it is, August and September, and we're just now finding out about these events. So again, if you have been so distanced socially, or on your residence on another planet, this guy was 43 years old, butt naked in the cold, on the street in Rochester, New York, in February. Okay, if you've never been up north in February or January, it ain't like the cold it is in Texas. And he apparently had a mental health episode, and he was spitting at the police, and they put the hood on him. When I first saw, let's just start right there. When you first saw Natalie, that they had put a hood on him, what were your thoughts?
I can't say they want a Christian network.
You better dumb it down, or you better censor it down, because this is important.
What in the world? Those are my first comments. I mean, really, why? Again, it goes back to our point. Why kill him?
Point?
I mean, if he was having a mental episode, why kill him?
I mean, that's just like the Elijah McClain situation, as well, which is crazy. These things happen like that. I think we're past the point of making sense of them. I think now we're at the point of saying it's obvious what's happening, right? Because what the anti-Black Lives Matter people are saying is that they're giving us every other rule or every other aspect of what possibly is happening besides what's actually happening, right? And they want us to feed into that. So it goes back to the point where I've heard Shannon Sharp say this, where he said that if I want to talk about A, then you're going to talk about B, C, D, E, F, G. You're going to talk about everything else around A besides A, right? So if you know that A is wrong, if you know it's something that's condemning or holding you accountable, you're going to talk about everything else. You're going to say, well, the reason why A is happening is because of B, C, D, this, and that. No. At the end of the day, you're a police officer. You're the one that's in authority. You are the person who controls that situation, right? You're the person who is supposed to be trained to de-escalate and to render aid, right? I hear police officers all the time. That's the first thing they say. If we ever injure somebody, their first priority is to render aid. They're not doing that in these situations.
Yeah, they're causing the aid and rendering it. But I think that is an extraordinary point. Cori, you look like you on the hot seat over there, and I see smoke coming from the top of your head, like you want to get in on this. Go.
I just, the thing, I think I spoke about it earlier, the protect and serve part of it. I mean, we continuously, almost daily, in and out, you hear incidents where police officers are showing up at mental health issues, situations where they're not threatened or dangerous, and someone ends up injured or dead. Just like in Mr. Purdue's situation, he was having a mental episode, because to be out in Rochester, New York in January, February, no clothes on, there's some issue going on there. And then you put the whatever you want to call it over his head. I've never seen anything like that. I don't understand the purpose of that. And I even heard somebody mention something about COVID, and I'm thinking, y'all didn't even know what COVID was in January and February. So you put this sack over his head, then you hold him on the ground until you get him to the hospital. Then you got the whole fallout from the police chief and all these people resigning because they lied to the mayor and said that he had a drug overdose. So they just took out another black man outside in the nude, in the cold. He's got drug issues. Come to find out, the medical examiner says the guy died. It was a homicide. Yeah. So now you got all this fallout from this. So I think it goes back to, I think it was something me and On Point was talking about earlier today before we even got on the air, is if you are that afraid as a police officer, you can't protect and serve the citizens that you take an oath to protect and serve. It may be time for some police officers just to give up their badges, rescind their oath, and just get off the police force, because it's getting to a point now. It's crazy, because every time you look around, you guys show up, somebody ends up injured or dead. So
yeah, it's like they're thinking that badge is some sort of authorization for really domestic terror.
Right.
Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, it's like a license to kill.
Yeah.
At this point, So yeah, it's something at that point. I mean, that's what needs to happen. I mean, for a guy to sit here and have a medical issue, and you can see that they are not clearly in their right state of mind, you do something about it. Help this person out. You clearly see that. If I see somebody, I mean, it was a guy that came to my job the other day, and he was there yelling and screaming at the top of his lungs. Clearly, he wasn't in his right mind, right? You can tell that's what was going on. I'm not a police officer, but I could identify that was what was going on. He was not in his right mind. So my first thought process is to be, hey, is someone here with him Does he need help or anything of that nature, right? So those are the most important things, I think, that should be, that's what you should be doing. Like, I remember back in the day, police officers I encountered as a kid would try to offer help first before they would try to, try to condemn you for something and try to put you in a position where you become a criminal. Right. So, or not become a criminal, or where they try to make you a threat because they say, oh, you turned and did this, or you did something that threatened my life, so now I'm going to kill you.
Right. I wanted to go back to what Cori was talking about in regards to the hood, or the pillowcase, or whatever you want to call it. I think they call it a spit hood in the police.
Right. I think I've heard of those before.
I think that's what they call it. So when I'm like Natalie, I was like, what the, blankety blank blank blank. But then as the story started to unfold and the details came out, well, they said that the gentleman was spitting at them, and that was actually put over his head in order to protect them from the possible exchange of an infection. Maybe not COVID, but HIV, something to that nature. Because if he has that and he spits and it lands in their mouth, there's a chance they could get infected by it. So after I saw that, I was like, okay. But then you go further, and he has the chokehold on them for what, 4 minutes? And okay, so they said that it was a drug overdose. Well, we know that it was not. He did have PCP in his system, but he's actually, as we said, had some sort of mental health breakdown, and that's what his brother was talking about, and the fallout from the leadership. First of all, let's define this thing, leadership. I don't think leaders are in their position of leadership to alienate, divide, or whatever else that does not lead to some sort of healing. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what gender you are. Either you are or you not. So for the leadership in Rochester, they bungled this, and it really looks bad on black people, because that police chief was black and the mayor is black.
Well, and I think really from that standpoint, you really have to look back at, again, what's going on in the police departments across the country, that someone needs to step up and redefine training. I know there's been a lot of discussion about defunding police and all of that, but I think along the way, someone needs to go back and redefine some of this training, because evidently the chokehold, the stranglehold, that is something that is being taught in law enforcement training, because that keeps being kind of a common thread when individuals end up either dead or injured. They've been strangled or choked or knee on their neck. And, just kind of going back to what Charles mentioned about protecting the servant, I know I mentioned another video I saw where there was a black family had just had their yard cut. So the guy was walking around looking at his yard.
I saw that.
The police officer pulls up and tells him, show me your ID. And the guy was like, why does it show you my ID? And he was like, I just need to see your ID to make sure you live here.
He said that he saw him walking around the side of the house.
Right, so it's like, now we're at the point where if I pass by your house and it doesn't look like you belong, I'm obligated to prove to the law enforcement that I live at this house. And it was maybe a 10-minute conversation.
Yeah.
Until the wife came out, and when most of the time wives get involved, it kind of escalates, and it got really even louder. And then I don't know whatever. Eventually, they never showed any ID. But I'm just saying, this whole thing with the police officers protecting and serving, it's like they're more or less escalating these situations than they are de-escalating them, because there was really no reason. Because the guy even said, "You just saw me pay the lawn guy, and the lawn guy drove off. You didn't stop him, but you want to see my ID. Why would I pay somebody else to cut somebody else's yard, and now I'm finna rob them?" It made no sense. But I just
my
think,
own yard, for that matter.
I think it's something that a lot of law enforcement needs to just look at ways to de-escalate the situation. And I don't until that happens, we're not gonna get this isn't gonna get any better.
Here, Go ahead, Charles. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I'm just ditto, man. I mean, everything you said, Exactly. That was my point. What I was saying earlier about reform, training, whatever needs to happen. They need to reevaluate what is happening and how these police officers are being trained to de-escalate these situations. Like you said, perfectly stated, it's like they are trying to escalate this stuff. Like it's like that they are, let me see what I can do to poke the bear. What can I do to get a rise out of this person? So that way it can escalate. I can draw my gun, or I can put you in a chokehold and be at liberty to take your life.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on that when you talked about the police. Ladies and gentlemen out there, can you please understand that defund the police does not mean get rid of the police? Can you please get that? Number two, defunding the police simply means, in my opinion, allocating resources around the department so other initiatives can be addressed. Neighborhood conversation between police officers and the citizens, things of that nature. So, and then the second thing I want to bring up, I feel like a break is coming up here real soon, so I'm gonna try to get this in real quick. In Utah, did y'all hear about the shooting of the 13-year-old autistic kid in Utah? Okay,
I heard about that.
You heard about that.
Yeah.
I guess it's gonna be a two-way conversation. This is an A-B conversation. You can see your, no, I'm just like, but no, actually it just popped up to me. His name is Lyndon Cameron, 13 years old, was shot by the police after his mother called 911 to help out with the boy. And for
Shot?
Hold on a minute. For all of y'all out there saying this, well, why y'all not saying nothing? It happens to white people all the time. This kid was white, unarmed, in the back. Now he's in the hospital with injuries to his intestines and all kind of internal organs. So, you know, you have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, Black lives mattered before Black Lives Matter. Basically saying that I got tagged in a video 6 years ago. It was the Ice Bucket Challenge. I don't know if y'all remember that or not. Well, my friend, he actually hijacked the challenge and turned it into a Black Lives initiative or awareness challenge. And he tagged it, or he hashtagged it. Oh, we got to go to a break. Oh, we got 2 minutes. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. All right, so anyway, he tagged it. He tagged it, hashtag Black Lives Matter. But that was 2014. Further evidence that.
Hold on. So he was autistic?
Yes, the kid was autistic.
And he was shot?
And he was shot in the back.
That further to me just goes back to what happened to the protect and serve. I don't know what has happened within the police force and the police force leadership of this country over the last couple of years.
They're scared.
There again, like On Point said, if you're afraid, get your gun, get your badge up, get out of the business. Because I mean, if a kid we're having too many mental health issues where you show up and you're hurting somebody, what happened to the thing of where you go out for a mental health episode and you de-escalate it? So that was telling me when you got the car, you're already pulling your gun out, you're ready to do whatever you need to do. Your only way to de-escalate it is to shoot or harm somebody. It's not to talk anybody out of that situation.
He was he's in serious condition with injuries to his intestines, bladder, shoulders, and ankles. And his mom said, quote, he's a small child. Why didn't you just tackle him? What you said earlier about Jacob. Mm-hmm. Barton, he's a baby. He has mental issues. And it's like now, the de-escalation process or the procedure of de-escalation only involves pulling a gun. Mm-hmm. Oh, pulling a gun. Nat, I see you shaking your head over there.
So as a mother, why am I going to call the police? I mean, you're not going to help me. I might as well take care of my child myself.
That's deep right there.
Well, before we go to break, you remember that happened out in Colleyville, and we know what the Colleyville makeup of that neighborhood is. That happened in Colleyville. The mother called, and her son had a screwdriver, and they clearly saw it was a screwdriver. They killed the guy. So, I mean, it's something's got to happen with the police force.
Yeah, we're going to get into more of this, or a little bit more of this on the other side of the break. We're going to talk about the election. And I promise, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into some sports about how the pandemic has affected us all.
BGC Big Deals just became amazing. Introducing amazing Amazon deals with Amazon savings virtually on everything. Just go to bgcsports.net and click on the amazing Amazon deals page and absolutely take advantage of the deals being offered by Amazon. From the station that might need to change its name to Amazing, we are the BGC Sports Amazing Network.
Can't remember what a home-cooked meal tastes like? Want a meal just like mama's? We're talking about ribs, chicken, and deep-fried catfish with all the fixings. Fork Talk Eatery will have your mouth smacking and your fork talking. Whether it's large or small parties, they do it all. Call Fork Talk Eatery at 469-358-5241 for all of your catering needs. You can also find them on Facebook at Fork Talk Eatery and on Instagram at Fork Talk 3000. Fork Talk Eatery. It's forking delicious.
Imagine how amazing it would be to send a high-quality advertisement of your business, product, or service to be seen on any internet-enabled device that would display on the most popular social media platforms. Introducing proximity advertising from the Next Generations Marketing. Interested? Then send an email to Marvin Cashoff at info@thenextgenerationsmarketing.com. It's the next level in marketing from thenextgenerationsmarketing.com.
Feeling stressed? You're not alone. Stress is an unpleasant part of life. I'm Randy Peak, founder of Cotipause. Cotipause is committed to providing individuals, groups, ministries, and businesses with grace-based solutions. Visit cotipause.org today. Discover real solutions for real life. Don't just survive, thrive. That's cotipause.org. KATAPAUSE.org.
Are you a business owner looking for funding? Greenbox Capital is here to help by providing easy working capital loans in as little as 24 hours. Visit greenboxcapital.com/apply now to fill out a short form and get started today. With funding from $3,000 to $500,000, Greenbox Capital can help. Visit greenboxcapital.com/apply now to receive a special offer of 10% off cost of working capital. Greenboxcapital.com/apply now and get business funding needed without stress from traditional lenders. Greenboxcapital.com/apply now. Fast funding for small businesses.
Hey kids, let mom help with your science project.
This new mom wants her kids' science project to thrive. Too bad she hasn't cracked a science book since 1985.
A metathesis reaction?
Compounds, mixtures, and elements. Even this baking soda volcano is too big of an experiment. Whoa. Now she's completely forgotten the periodic table. Now she's burning a hole through the kitchen table. Burning with science. But her kids' love for the mom is truly transparent. Proof you don't have to be perfect to be the perfect parent.
Don't tell Dad.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of siblings in foster care will take you just as you are. For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org/TX. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at BGC Sports 1. 24/7 in high definition. You're listening to the Big Game Christian Sports Network.
And we welcome everyone back to the Kick the Narrative Part Deuce right here on the BGC Sports Network. To the dopest engineer on the rock, Big Dave, Natalie Hicks, Cori Hicks, Charles Boyd, your boy Willie Epting Jr. We are holding it down, man, once again, talking about the issues of life. For out of the heart, that's where it all flows. Ain't that what the scripture says?
And that's it. I think that's part of our problem.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we too busy taking on the emotion of it all and not the spirit of it all. So hopefully, prayerfully one day we will get there. All right, so I had given you guys some information about a kid that was in Utah that got shot. He was 13-year-old Cameron Linden, shot by the police out there. And Natalie, you were talking about it from a mom's perspective. Let's catch the people back up on that.
Well, I mean, as a mom, if I have a child and he's autistic and I want the police to come and help me, not hurt my child. So, it makes me even think back. Now I'm going to really show how old I am. Willie, you can remember this. I think, Cori, y'all probably had this down in Winfield too. Remember when the policemen used to come to your school and you'd be so excited and you went home with the junior police badge?
Oh, yeah.
And you used to say, I'm a junior police, and you'd put it in your window. Do
Oh,
you
yeah.
think kids these days really want to be a junior police officer?
Well, that's what Kyle Rittenhouse was. So.
Or I'm gonna give you another one that was a police officer. Oh gosh, Dylan Roth in South Carolina. Same thing. I mean, and he said he wanted to start a race riot. He wanted to. That was his purpose of going into that church and doing it. After you sat there and you listened to Bible study, you got God's word, and then you're gonna shoot all the people in his house. Okay, I'm sorry.
I just think that just
Don't apologize.
That's what we've had, the type of leadership that we've had coming out of the People's House the last 4 years. And I think one of the things me and On Point talked about at the first break was when he started running for president 4 years ago. Typically when race groups or hate groups start supporting a candidate, the first thing that candidate does is denounce that group. I have nothing to do with that group. But this president didn't just say totally embrace them, but he never said, I don't want you in my circle. So what that is kind of told and showed most of America is that he embraces this type of divisive rhetoric that we've had to deal with for the last 4 years. And I don't think it's going, if he's elected again, I don't think it's going to get any better. We will continue to come to the table with these conversations about how divisive America is and has been for forever almost.
Let me do a couple things. Let me plug the network because we are actually broadcasting live on Facebook. We welcome your comments. We welcome your questions. We will get you shouted out on the air. And speaking of comments, we got one from Enora Day. Do you know what's sad? Why are we trying to get back to our regular norm before the COVID and asking for change at the same time in Black Lives Matter? What we're needing is a new norm that transforms the way we handle each other. Do we want the COVID to go away to give us our norm back, or do we want COVID to usher in a world healed of both diseases? Racism is the incurable disease that no one has found a cure for. That's some powerful words right there from Miss Day. As a mom, because she is a mom, Natalie, answer that question for the people. The people.
That was deep. Sister Day. I don't even know where to begin to answer that question. Honestly, I
tell you what, you think on it, and we'll bring you back into the fold. But Cori, I'm gonna go back to you and what you just said about 45 and denouncing. The very first opportunity he had to do that was when that took place, or that event took place in Charlottesville, Virginia. And he came out and said what? There were fine folks at that place on both sides. What?
But, you know, to just kind of go back to the question you asked Natalie from Ms. Day about racism. And I think that is one of the biggest problems with why we keep coming to this table. Is because America fails to realize that there is racism in America. Because until they address that issue, that from the very beginning, this country was built on a foundation of not equality. And we kind of joked on it today when we talked about the Native Americans, when we were getting set up. They came to America, they found the Native Americans, and they found a way to put these individuals on reservations and change them from being natives to this country to foreigners, to
minorities.
To now, it's very hard to find any Native Americans unless you go on these reservations. So you look at that whole plateau of what this country was built on, and that's just came forward through the years. And then even just kind of fast forward that to the, I guess the proper term would be the Hispanic population in Central America that they've used for, was that the right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Latino, Hispanic. I'm sure they'd be okay with that.
Used for labor for all these years, and then all of a sudden 45 gets to the White House. These are bad people. And we know over the last 20 years, just right here in the state of Texas, how much that population has meant to the construction and the growth that we've seen in Texas. Without them, a lot of this growth wouldn't happen, because I know as African Americans, we used to be out there, but now we're not going to go out there and work for that in those kind of wages. But just to kind of speak to that, to just show you the racism part of it, you utilize these people to build all what you build. And now it's like 45 says, hey, these are bad people. I don't want them here. I need to build a wall to keep them out of America. When these, on the backs of America, a lot of this stuff was built off of their work.
And he didn't even pay him when they built his buildings.
Well, that's true too. We're not gonna get on that.
Yeah, we may not. That might be a little bit too deep. But Charles Boyd, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good.
Can I say something right quick?
Yeah, of course.
So
back to
I'm going back to.
Thought.
Well, no, I'm going back, and I had to really sit here and read. Sister, they went deep in this message. But the one thing I can't really answer, because I'm agreeing with what she's asking. Why are we trying to go back to the norm before the COVID? I mean, do we go back? Because it was just as bad then as it is now. It has gotten worse. So it goes back to our question that we asked initially. What do we do to change this? You know, is it taking the guns away from those police officers that don't need to be policemen? You know, what is it that we need to do? Because, you know, even with the protests, I don't necessarily agree with some of the protests that, say that 3 times fast, the protests that they're doing, because you're looting and you're tearing up your own neighborhoods.
Looting and rioting is not the same as protesting.
Well, they consider it that they're protesting, though.
That's how they're spinning it.
That's how they're spinning it. But, you know, I don't necessarily agree with that. So I agree with what she asked. What do we do? Yes, you can come in now.
Of course.
Yeah. All right. So with that, and I get it, man. And I'm with you, Natalie. Don't misconstrue. I do understand that the rioting and the destruction of your community, to me, it doesn't make sense. But at the same time, I understand it. Because at the end of the day, that's really the only thing that's getting everybody's attention. And that's what the threat is now. They're saying, okay, now we need to listen, because if we don't listen, they are going to go and tear some stuff up again. So we need to be able to listen to what is going on. Like the March on Washington, right? That happened just recently. You know, Al Sharpton put that together or what have you, and had all the mainstream victims' families come up there. They spoke or what have you. So with that being said, I understand the reason behind it. I know we're saying they're spending it that way, and people there are people out there that are taking advantage. And I do believe that there are people that are kind of put in there as pawns, and they're going out there and they're starting these riots.
Exactly.
And I totally agree with that. But at the end of the day, like that's what's really getting everybody's attention. They're like, okay, you know what? We finna go tear some stuff up. That's what we about to do, because y'all are out here really treating us like we animals, right?
Yeah, and as we segue from that into the presidential election talk, because it seems like to me that COVID-19 and racial injustice, poetic justice, whatever justice you want to call it, it seems like the Republican Party is really politicizing it to fit their agenda. So when you say, or when it is said that, well, the spread of the disease is because people are out here protesting, let's just take away the rioting and the looting away from it. Okay, they're actually exercising their constitutional right, and they're doing it the right way. But now you want to say because of that is leading to the spread of the disease. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, the current president had a campaign rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma, of all places, and there were no mask mandates. He had a rally in North Carolina. No mask mandates.
If you go back to Tulsa, you even had a former presidential candidate that passed away from attending that rally.
Exactly. And go ahead.
Yeah. I was just saying Herman Cain.
Herman Cain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then members of your crew, for the lack of a better word, also tested positive for the COVID.
Mm-hmm.
What is it going to take? Cori, what is it going to take?
Well, I think the biggest problem was, and I won't say fault the CDC or any one of those groups, when they started, as just any sickness or illness, they start tracking it by demographics, age, race, whatever. Once they said that it was infected the brown and black community more, that was a signal to white America that, you know what, this is one less thing we have to deal with. That's over there in their neighborhood. We can let them deal with it. Because after that, if you notice, everything has been mask or
social distance.
It's taking away our freedoms, our liberties. It's taking away all of that.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's not a disease for us. That's their disease. That's their issue. And I think kind of going back to what Ms. Day was asking, what are we going back to? And I think what we need to be looking for is what's going to change America, change the hearts of people, so we can all be better than trying to go back to something. Because I think at the end of the day, we know what was on the other side of us, but now how do we get to something that's better? Because, you know, you look back through the years, we've seen some improvement in the black community, but has things really improved to the point where we can say we have some equality, some social justice? Things hadn't changed, so what are we going back for? Let's keep pushing forward till we reach that equality we're trying to reach.
And to that point, this may be dangerous what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it. I don't think that people really want to change. The people that are not affected, I don't think they really want to change. I think they're okay with as is. That's why we get so much pushback. That's why the overwhelming response is not, oh my God, this is tragic. We need to do something about this. That's how we're getting. You do have some, as we like to call them, allies, right? Who are saddened, and it's impacting them as well, and they're advocating for Black America as well, the people in Black America. The people that are Black in America, I should say.
Right.
So that's happening, but at the end of the day, the real change I think that we're looking for is not happening. So to piggyback on what Cori was saying, pushing forward, trying to make sure we're smarter and we are aware. This is what should happen for Black people. We should be more aware of all the stuff that's going on. And now we've pulled the sheep. We pull the sheep out of the wolves that are in sheep's clothing.
Right.
We're pulling that off. That's what's happening right now. So now we're more aware, and now it's like, okay, I see you. I know how to deal with you now.
Behold, I send you out as sheep amongst wolves. What book is that in, Elder Day? I think it's in either Mark, one of the gospel books. Mm-hmm. But 3 things that I took from what you said and from what you said, you, Cori, and you on point. Number 1, I have the answer to fix this. They have the answer to fix this. They don't want to, like you said. You said change the hearts of America. That's where it begins and ends. Now, unfortunately, in my opinion, I think that there are a great many people that don't look like us who have the right heart and really want to see effective change. But I don't think there's nearly enough. And as long as that ratio continues to be lopsided like that, then we were going to continue to say equality. We're going to continue to beg for justice for all. We're going to continue to say Black Lives, because it ain't about Black Lives Matter, the organization. So let's just take that off the table. even if it was no Black Lives Matter, Black lives would still matter. So, number 2 is the divisive rhetoric, and it's really more of what he doesn't say than what he does say. Because as we said in the last segment, he's had opportunity to denounce, and when you come back and you basically support the shooter of a 17-year-old shooter who went across state lines with the mindset to kill. When you support that, it's like what Jesus said. You're either with me or you're against me. And to me, that says it all right there. Dude, you are against us. And we're going to get into the presidential election talk here in just a minute, but I wanted to round it off with this third thing. If you are not black and you are white, and all of these things that we're talking about don't affect you, or if it's not your shoe that fits, we're not talking to you. But you know what? We are talking to you. And not only are we talking to you, we are talking about you. Because I ain't afraid to say, I'm not ashamed to say it. I heard Stephen A. Smith say it. I heard a bunch of people say it. We need you. We don't need you to rescue us, but you have the influence and the cachet to assist and influence. That is what we need. So it's not just enough to say, I'm not a racist. It's not enough to say that anymore. It's not enough to say, well, yeah, I got 19 black friends. Really? Then the 20th one must be, never mind. But anyway, but I wanted to say that. And then the third thing was this, is that if you're not, the reason why people are not outraged is because it does not directly affect them. So as long as something indirectly affects you, you're going to be in the same heart, state of mind, whatever. But let me bring it to your doorstep. Let me bring it to Cumberland Gap Ave in Omaha or wherever. I know there's black folks in Omaha, but I'm just saying. Instead of, Zang Avenue or Zang Boulevard in Dallas or MacArthur Boulevard in Oakland. Let me bring it to the suburbs by which the strong arm, not the strong arm, the law and order president has basically said he don't want black folks in the suburban areas no more. We'll get to that in just a second. So,
the Holland part. We
need you. We don't need you to rescue us. We need your help, and we need you to stand lock and step with us. And for those that are really, really wanting to help, you can be weeded out as well, because we will be able to tell immediately if you say you want to help or if you say you want to help but then do something. And the first step is this: sit down with us and talk. No, sit down with us and listen. Listen to what we have to say. Ask questions. Don't do this. Well, you know what? My son got pulled over because he was wearing a hoodie, and it happened in North Plano or South Frisco, and he was just looking for a friend's house. Don't tell us when we tell you that. Well, my son, that happened to me. That's not what we're talking about. You're already distorting the narrative. Let's stick to this. And then, like you said in the first segment, we won't have to get to the B, C, D, E, and F because we're continually talking about the A. Mm-hmm. Natalie?
Well, in your comments, you made me think about Kirk Herbstreit. I think we watched him on College Game Day. They had a kind of a kick the narrative like we're doing.
They got it from us.
And I have to admit, Kirk Herbstreit, he got it. He understands it. Yeah. If you did not see that, go watch it. His words were real.
And you know what? To piggyback on that, if that was an act,
he needs an Oscar because
not only that, but he still, if it's an act, for him to be able to put that out there the way that he did, he still has some sort of understanding about what is going on.
Correct.
You see what I'm saying? I don't care if I don't think it was an act. I think he was very genuine about what he was saying. Mm-hmm. But if he was acting about it, you know exactly what's going on. For you to be able to, because when you act, you have to get in the character, right?
You do.
So he got in the character and he was able to understand and feel exactly what Black America is feeling. And just kind of piggyback on what Willie was saying earlier. And I think, simply put, everything that you were saying is, your silence is compliance, right? So,
well, hold on, I'm gonna stop you there because he gets it, but the thing, I think he was more so talking to his brother. Yeah. You know, telling them that you need to sit down. If you're in the locker room with them and you're playing with them, you need to sit down and have a conversation with them so you can understand how they're feeling. How you gonna go out there and play with them and you don't understand what they're feeling? Because when y'all all walk out of those locker rooms, I think about the movie Remember the Titans.
Oh yeah.
Remember when they went downtown and they wanted to go to the restaurant? I think it was Sunshine that wanted to take them in and said, "Hey, I got it." And Petey told them, "No, we can't go in there. They don't want us in there." It's the same thing. That's what I think I got from Herb Street. He gets it.
Yeah, because he caught flack too from the people.
He did.
The people whose heart aren't willing to change. And okay, I like to put things in a worst case scenario. So just to say he was acting. Okay? Just let's say he was and didn't mean any of it. Here's how you know your life is filled with purpose. When everything that you do is no longer about you. So even though you may have thought that he was faking, it's still about someone else. It's still about somebody else that's in the next generation. And if you look at the landscape of things, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dogs and cats, amphibians, all that. If you look at the landscape, there are a lot more, a whole lot of people. Let me put it that way. I'm sorry, y'all. This is it. A whole lot of people that are of a lighter shade than we are, that are locking arms with us from that younger generation. Why? Because they don't want that stigma attached to them anymore. And that's why we say, get your behinds out and vote, because it's that important. So the people who are in positions of influence, now understand this, power and influence are different. So for the people who are in positions of influence, those are the ones that we're calling on. You're the people we're talking to. For people that are in position of power, number one, you ain't got the power. You don't have the power. You got the power you think you got. But influence, believe it or not, in my opinion, is way more powerful than power.
It is.
Well, I think you just speaking the whole situation with Herb Street. I know he caught a lot of flack for it, and then you just got to look at him as a whole, because you go back to Herb Street, even when he was in Columbus, he had to move from Columbus to Nashville because he will stand and speak what he truly felt, because the people at Ohio State and Buckeye Nation thought he wasn't speaking enough in their favor, that they pretty much ran him out of Columbus to Nashville. But then at the same time, you look at that, the movement that is happening now, there are a lot of our white brethren that are stepping up. I don't know if it's because they don't want that stigma attached to them or there's a change of heart. But there is some degree of change that is happening, but we're going to need more of it. And I think it's not them so much sitting at the table with us, because it's easy if, say, a white brother came and sit down with the four of us now and talk. But what is the conversation when he gets to his house or wherever he goes next week? What conversation do you have then? Because it's easy to come in the room with us and talk a certain way. And then when you walk out the door, you're like, I'd have dealt with them. I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to get back to where I need to get. So
all right,
that's the key, I think, is what the conversation they're having when they're away from us.
All right, so the music is blaring in our ear. We're going to take a break, and I'm not going to get cut off this time. Make sure y'all come on back on the other side of the break, man. Kick the Narrative Part 2, Big Game Christian Sports Network.
BGC Big Deals just became amazing. Introducing amazing Amazon deals with Amazon savings virtually on everything. Just go to bgcsports.net and click on the amazing Amazon deals page and absolutely take advantage of the deals being offered by Amazon. From the station that might need to change its name to Amazing, we are the BGC Sports Amazing Network.
like mama's, we're talking about ribs, chicken, and deep fried catfish with all the fixings. Fork Talk Eatery will have your mouth smacking and your fork talking. Whether it's large or small parties, they do it all. Call Fork Talk Eatery at 469-358-5241 for all of your catering needs. You can also find them on Facebook at Fork Talk Eatery and on Instagram at Fork Talk 3000. Fork Talk Eatery. It's forking delicious.
Imagine how amazing it would be to send a high-quality advertisement of your business, product, or service to be seen on any internet-enabled device that would display on the most popular social media platforms. Introducing proximity advertising from the Next Generations Marketing. Interested? Then send an email to Marvin Cashoff at info@thenextgenerationsmarketing.com. It's the next level in marketing from thenextgenerationsmarketing.com.
Feeling stressed? You're not alone. Stress is an unpleasant part of life. I'm Randy Peak, founder of Cotipause. Cotipause is committed to providing individuals, groups, ministries, and businesses with grace-based solutions. Visit cotipause.org today. Discover real solutions for real life. Don't just survive, thrive. That's cotipause.org. KATAPAUSE.org.
Let's go! With Go-Go Squeeze! We're growing, standing tall. Climbing, laughing, hide and seeking, giving our all.
Our kids' days are filled with adventure, and Go-Go Squeeze is there for every run, jump, step of the way. Made from wholesome ingredients like 100% fruit and veggies, real yogurt, and no artificial anything. In Go Anywhere pouches, so our kids can keep going wherever their adventures take them. Go-Go Squeeze, you make the memories, we'll make the snacks. Find us in the applesauce aisle.
Let's go!
I'm Paul George of the Indiana Pacers. When I was 6, I had one thing on my mind. When I was 6, my days were spent playing basketball every chance I could. When I was 6, my dream was to make it to the NBA. When I was 6, my mom had a stroke. So I want you to learn the signs of a stroke fast. F-A-S-T. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. Because the sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. I'm Paul George. Protect the ones you love. Spot a stroke, F-A-S-T. Fast. Life is why. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
And welcome back, everyone, to the Kick the Narrative Part 2, right here on the Big Game Christian Sports Network. If you want to become a sponsor of this program or any of our programs and upcoming events, just send us an email at info@bgcsports.net. That's info@bgcsports.net. And let us discuss the best plan for you. To the dopest engineer in the game, Big Day. What's going on? Cori Hicks.
Hey, what's happening?
Charles Boyd.
Is my mic on? There it is. What's happening, people?
Natalie Hicks.
What's up?
Willie Epting Jr., man. We holding it down, rounding the final turn as we're in the final segment of this hashtag Kick the Narrative Part 2. And before we went to break, Natalie had a comment that she wanted to make on the upcoming election. So I'm going to pass the mic as I virtually pass the mic over to her and let her speak on that. Go ahead, Nat.
Well, the main thing that I want to say, as I've been saying, vote like you've never voted before. I've listened to Kamala Harris. I've listened to Joe Biden. And I have to say, from listening to Kamala kind of shouted out the HBCUs, Hasaras, AK, and the Divine Nine. Y'all, if you just go out and vote, it makes a difference. Yep. It definitely will make a difference at the polls. We need those numbers. We don't need to sit at home. We don't need to put him back in office. I'm not going to even say his name. So let's do what Mama said. Vote like you've never voted before. Make sure you're registered. Go and vote.
And, of course, Kamala Harris is from Oakland, California. What up, East Bay? And she's a graduate of Howard University, the Bison. All right, so we're going to switch over, man. We're going to talk some sports, which y'all been waiting for. And we're going to begin on what took place on opening night of the NFL season. On Thursday night, the Houston Texans went to Kansas City again and got beat again But we're going to talk about what happened before the game even started. And Charles Boyd, his eyelashes are on fire.
I was about to say he's been waiting all day to talk about
Look,
this.
I need a fire extinguisher to put his face out. Charles, kick the narrative, bruh.
Shout out to the Houston Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs for.
I hate them.
I know you hate
Sportsopedia.
But yeah, shout out to both of those organizations for doing the right thing. They took it upon themselves to make a statement and protest, right? And protest the right way, right? So what they did was they locked arms, they stood in unity, and showed that they wanted to stand together for equality. That was the biggest thing, that the message that they were trying to send when they did this. We also heard the Negro National Anthem. I'm kind of torn in between how I feel on that situation, and of course you heard the National Anthem, right? So you hear all these things. Now, the point that I want to talk about is the fact of the matter that you heard a reaction from the crowd, not during the National Anthem, right? Where that's where all the beef, where Colin Kaepernick first started kneeling in, that's where all the beef it came from. You're kneeling while you're listening to the National Anthem. No, this is a standing in unity, letting everybody know that we want equality. So the message that we were getting from the fans in Kansas City, let me be clear for those of you who do not know, if you did not watch that game on Thursday night, that the fans booed during the stand for equality when the quarterbacks locked arms and all the teams, the coaches, you saw J.J. Watt up there, everybody all locked arms to show they were standing together. Whenever that happened, the fans booed. Literally booed.
Loudly. So if that's not a reflection of what is going on right now, or if you want to know the people's out there, true feelings. We were talking about before we went to break about how we need everybody to have a change of heart. And the challenge to that would be, well, I think people are listening right now. They're not, because look what happened in Kansas City. During a national televised game, the first game of the season, we heard the Kansas City fans booing during a moment where it should have been a reflection of equality. What are you booing for? That's a big question right now. I can tell you what I think. I want to hear y'all's perspective. What are they booing for? Go ahead, Corey. Your eyelashes on fire too.
Well, I think the biggest part is, Charles, they don't want to reconcile with their past because they know what has gone on in America through the years. So now what they're basically saying, you've had your summer, you protested, you've done whatever you do. Now it's time to kind of shut up, play ball, and let's leave this alone. We're not going to address what you won't address. And I think that's basically, to me, that's what they told them on Thursday night. It's like, okay, you've done this, we've heard this, we've given you your Negro National Anthem, we've given you the different names on the back of the shirts, you've had all this, okay, we heard you. Now we're done with this. Let's move on. And I think that's where a lot of mindsets are.
We're going to talk about what the NBA did and some squads did in the NFL and even the National Hockey League did in terms of showing unity in just a second. But what I wanted to say to wrap up this part of it, as far as the Chiefs and Texans games goes, number one, there were only about 15,000 people in the stands.
That's 25%, right?
That's something to that nature. So you happen to be one of the ones that was privileged, fortunate, and blessed enough to be at the stadium the first game after your team just won their first Super Bowl in 50 years. And that is how you behave. Number two, in that behavior, we're talking about what you did as opposed to what actually happened in the game, or even what happened before the game with the banner being unveiled for them winning the championship. Oh, by the way, I hate them. So the third thing is, I'm very interested to see what other teams are going to do to show the unity unite mantra, movement, organism, or organization, whatever you want to speak to it as.
Dallas Cowboys.
We're gonna get into them in just a minute. So I'm gonna end it. I'm gonna end it there. I'm gonna end it there because we gotta end it there because we gonna get to some Cowboys. How about them Cowboys and they owner Jerry
First
Jones?
of all, I'm not gonna let y'all dog my Cowboys.
Too late.
Secondly,
Too late.
No, before you jump, y'all not gonna address the fact that Patrick Mahomes said he didn't hear him booing. Y'all just gonna let that slide?
Well, I think from Patrick Mahomes' standpoint, I mean, we know he's a biracial individual.
Okay, so biracial, he would.
But I think at the end of the day,
so was Colin Kaepernick.
I understand what America says. If it's 1 ounce of black blood in, you're black. But at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes is going to do what Patrick Mahomes has to do for himself to fit smoothly in Kansas City. But I think that's part of the problem. And I think the other part of it was when I heard yesterday someone said that the media or TV piped in the boos. That is part of a problem in America. We're covering up some of the things that America is failing to realize and recognize what the problem is. We need to address this head on so we can fix the problem. It's almost like we know we got a leak over here, and for centuries we've looked away from the leak and we just put a piece of tape on it. We need to fix it. And I think until we truly address that leak, what is racism, we're still going to continue to have these problems. We're going to continue to come back to these issues.
Well, I mean, whether he heard him booing or not, I mean, he is already put himself in a position to where he's going to be judged either on this side or that side for the way he has placed himself up. Not saying that he's not humble or anything like that, but the way he's elevated the way he is elevated based on the money that he got and his play on the field. So we'll wait and see on that. Let's move on to the thing that started it all back in the NBA bubble, the Milwaukee Bucks. I know Charles had some comments he wanted to express about that. If you remember, the Milwaukee Bucks came out and read a statement on the shooting issue in Wisconsin, with that being in their home state. And the Bucks, they kind of led a movement on that. Go ahead, Charles.
Again, kudos to the Bucks for invoking change. They definitely took their power that they have in their own hands and said, we're not going to play. We're not going to play. And we heard a very emotional George Hill who came out and was putting out expletives, saying that they shouldn't be down there anyway. They were already reluctant about doing this because of following what happened with George Floyd. They were saying that they didn't need to be in the bubble. They need to use their influence to really make something happen. So now something came out of it. They were able to use their arenas or home arenas to house voting facilities. So that way they're even working on other things where they can even charter people in to these places and make sure people are getting registered to vote. All the players have decided they are going to make sure that they're registered to vote. So that is something I think was a very powerful movement that the Milwaukee Bucks initiated, and I'm very proud that they took that initiative. And then it was so much of a noble thing that their opponent, Miami, at the time didn't even know that they weren't going to play. Like, they were out there warming up, and all of a sudden they were like, well, the Bucks aren't out here. What's going on? Well, the team decided not to play, which sent shockwaves throughout the NBA. And what's even more noble about it, even more incredible, rather, what I'm learning is that they were saying that there were certain points during these meetings that they didn't think that they were going to get the owners to do something. So they actually thought the season would be shut down altogether.
And word was that's what the Clippers and the Lakers were shooting for. And LeBron James apparently drew the ire of some of the other younger players there, the way that he was talking. Not that he was, well, I don't know, I wasn't there, but that's what the reports show, that he was talking down upon them or what have you. But what I wanted to also get into with that, because they started that initiative, and it led to the NFL. It bled into the college sports, and it bled to the National Hockey League.
Which is incredible.
Incredible
because it's not many black people.
I think there's 3 black people or black men in that sport. And for them to advertise on the Jumbotron, Black Lives Matter, and then to come out and postpone games, that's how real it is. That's how real you know it is. And if we know it's that real, for that league to do it, first of all, it was NASCAR. NASCAR and hockey. So when you have NASCAR and hockey saying, you know what, dog, this ain't right. The ones that don't want it to change are very, very scared right now. Very scared. We got about, Big Day, 15 minutes left to go in the show? 10 minutes left to go in the show. Let's talk some social injustice and America's team, as I do that in quotes, and their owner, Jerry Jones, and their quarterback, Dak Prescott. Now, there's two Cowboy fans at the table, and there's one back there running the board. And
so
then
speak lightly.
So we're going to talk about this, and we're going to just finish the show here. So just in case you guys didn't hear it, Dak Prescott, or actually Ezekiel Elliott, came out in a podcast and said that some of his teammates will be kneeling for the anthem. And he said which way they go, they will be supported no matter what. Now, we've heard Jerry Jones on the record saying that he's going to use one word, which is grace. Well, what does that mean? He never specified. And we talked about it in either the first or the second segment. When you don't say something, then you're saying something else. And Jerry Jones hasn't said something. And he is the most influential owner, CEO, head of a franchise, probably in the world, by most people's accounts. And a person with that kind of influence, 78 years old, with that kind of an influence, you need to make a stand. You need to make a stand because, number one, your players make you your money. And for Jerry Jones to have reportedly said, you're going to take a knee if you're on this football team. Well, Natalie, this is your team. If we're playing on your team, if we're players on that team, and your owner says you got to kneel for the anthem, how is he taking away your constitutional right?
Wait, he said we got to kneel?
If he said, yes, you have to kneel.
Oh, you're saying if he said we.
Yeah, that has been reported. That's your team.
It is my team. I even said it one time I was getting rid of my team, but because his silence, he didn't say anything. He had, like you said, he has not said anything, and that's a problem that I have with him. His team, he has a black team. Let's just put it out there.
Right.
And for you not to say one word, for you not to say, I care, I'm concerned, I want to do this, I want to do that, you haven't said one thing. I'm kind of at a loss for words with that too. So.
Charles, that's your team too. What you got?
I'm gonna be honest, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, to me, he's making his statement by not saying anything. He's basically saying that he could care less about this. He's like the fans in Kansas City.
He's like his president.
You've had your names on the back of or sayings on the back of the jerseys. You've had your protests across every league. He's like, why do I have to do it? Because, to your point, Willie, you're the most influential owner there is in sports, period.
Are the Cowboys putting anything on the back of that jersey?
Not that I heard of.
Their names. Their names.
Right. That's
name.
Not that I heard of. Right. And that's the thing that drives me insane. I can go on record to say that I am not a Cowboy fan because of Jerry Jones.
Wow.
Let me be clear in stating that. Let me be clear and say this, that Jerry Jones, I disagree with him not saying something.
Right.
This just in, Charles Boyd has detached himself from the Dallas Cowboys.
No, it's very difficult for me to say I'm not a fan of the Cowboys just because of my upbringing and how I was raised watching sports and football, right? So it's very hard for me to say I'm not a fan of the Cowboys. But I can say this, I do not like the fact that Jerry Jones has not said anything and has not done anything to support what is obviously going on right now.
Let me tell you what he's done, or in his mind, in my opinion.
Nothing.
He employs them, and he pays them good money. Sometimes that's all people think they have to do.
And he'll say he has great relationships with them. I mean, look at the relationships he's had with Michael Irvin and Emmitt Smith, Dez Bryant. Like,
why not? They made him a great chunk of his money.
Absolutely.
Corey.
Absolutely.
Hey, but just thinking about Jerry goes back to when all this first started with Colin Kaepernick. And he lined up, it was a Monday night game.
Arizona Cardinals.
And he lined the Cowboys up. And he pretty much told them, this is how we're going to do this. And just knowing Jerry, the way Jerry's carried himself, and I know, he proclaims the great relationships with Deion, Emmett, Michael, and all of them. But the way he's ran that franchise the entire time, he's owned it. Jerry thinks by him not saying anything, I'm going to keep the right people in my pocket, but I'm going to do enough to keep everybody else coming to me. So Jerry's going to sit on the fence and do the least amount Jerry can do. But I think at this point in time where we are with what's going on in America now, you can't sit on the fence. You're either going to be in the boat or you're going to be in the water. So he's got to make a choice. And I think at this point, Jerry's going to have to make a choice. Are you going to have more people, just like On Point just said, they're going to come to the point where you have to denounce the Dallas Cowboys. Because even though sports is, to me now, probably the least important thing that we're dealing with in America, but
It sure is good to have it back, though.
it is that is good. But at the same time, we got some tough discussions that we're going to have, and that's going on. And Jerry's going to have to decide, what are you going to do? Because I don't think those relationships from the past with past players and even players that he's brought back into the fold, that's not going to satisfy Black America now to say, hey, I'm good with these 5. But the rest of y'all, I don't know. He's going to have to sit down and come to the table and just say how he feels. It's almost like now you're either with me or you're against me, and you can't ride the fence now.
And I hope one of those guys, the ones who just mentioned, put him on the hot seat. I hope somebody does it. I hope Deion comes out. I hope Emmett, somebody comes out and says,
needs to make him.
Jerry, you need to make a stand. You need to say something.
But you got to look at where he's from.
Yeah, I understand. I understand he's from Arkansas and all the good stuff like that. But at the end of the day, he still needs to make a stand and say something.
He does.
I don't care if you say, he can say, I don't support Black Lives Matter.
Say
and if
something.
he does, at least I know who you are.
Exactly.
But I know who you are.
We
anyway.
know that.
I know who you are anyway because you haven't said anything.
Right.
But at the end of the day, just be real with yourself. Come out and say it so that way you can have these people who can just make a conscious decision to say, you know what? I don't fool with the Cowboys no more.
Go ahead, Natalie.
I mean,
It's going to break our heart, but go ahead. It's going to break your heart.
You're on the hot seat. Are you or are you not a Dallas Cowboy fan? Go. I'm just joking.
I am still a Cowboys fan, because part of the Cowboys is Dak, Zeke, Amari Cooper, and I support them. I definitely support Dak being, he's a homeboy from Louisiana, but, it's hard to support them because of somebody like Jerry Jones. So I'm still a Cowboys fan.
It's just sad because he's the owner. You're the owner of the team. And it's
Exactly.
like, dude, if he was a general manager, I'd be like, oh, okay.
He is the
He's
general
the
manager.
owner. Well, yeah, I mean, if he was only the general manager and not the owner.
Everything.
Yeah, right. I know he's there. If he was only the general manager and not the owner, in the face of everything that is Dallas Cowboys,
Exactly.
then this is what makes that situation terrible.
So, yes, I am still a Cowboys fan.
So we got about 4 minutes left to go in this terrific show. Thank you all out there on Facebook Live for checking us out. It's been a very spirited conversation on a myriad of subjects and issues that are going on in our country. Natalie, I want to piggyback on what you said about you support Dak and Amari and Zeke. So what if your boss at your job said, I support David Duke, or name any other person that's been associated with white supremacy?
I think I would have to get my stuff and walk out.
Okay, so that's my point, because it's going to be hard to support the oppressor of the oppressed.
Yeah, it is, but
Yeah, so you know what, sports fans all around the rock, y'all might need to make a choice, because if you're for the cause and the team that you root for doesn't, and you're spending your time in front of the TV boosting up the ratings or going to the games or what have you, you are supporting the oppressor of the oppressed. Point?
True.
I don't have no rebuttal for that. That's true.
It's true. It's a
It's
true
very true.
statement.
I'm so glad I'm a Raider fan. And I'm glad you're a 49er fan. Because we ain't got them kind of issues going on in our place.
Well, I can't
right.
say
49ers
I
just
can't
do
say
it.
That we know
I
of.
can't say about the 49ers because you know the way they did Cap.
I was going to say that.
I can't
Right.
say that because, I mean, the way they did Kaepernick, and I mean, part of it, he opted out of the deal. But I don't think, and even Roger Goodell has came on record, that was a conversation should have been had.
But that ain't the 49ers' fault. That's the league's fault.
Yeah, that's part of the league. But, I mean, he was part of that team, and the
Right.
team
Yeah,
really
but
didn't step
49ers
up.
could have took a
They
stand.
still
Should've
didn't step
spoke up
up
for
and
him.
just step up to support him more than they could have
Yeah,
did.
49 should have took a stand on that.
But
And maybe they should have been more of the pro actor instead of the reactor, like everybody else is being.
right.
So
but
do the 49ers have leadership like the Cowboys?
no, I don't.
Much
I
better
wouldn't-
than the Cowboys.
I wouldn't say they because Jerry comes from that old guard, and we know where Jerry came from.
What about Oakland?
Oakland
with
was
with your
but-
boy Al.
Al Davis?
Al
The Davis
Davis.
family.
First of all, get it right. It's Las Vegas.
Yeah, well, there's Las Vegas now, of
The
course.
Raiders.
Yeah,
Just say
and
the
they
Raiders.
wanted to get them out of Oakland. We know what kind of demographics Oakland has, so he want to pull them out of Oakland and go to Vegas.
But I think
Come on
at
now.
the end of the
$500 million.
day, but I think at
I
the
hear
end,
you.
But at the end of the day, one of the things we just really got to look at with all this sports stuff is all these owners are gonna have to treat the athletes better because we know, except for probably hockey, well, baseball, is
NASCAR.
NASCAR, and I got an issue with NASCAR altogether because I can get in that story still on NASCAR all day, where it came from to how it got to be. But
NASCAR is the most racist.
but I'm just talking about team sports. Besides probably hockey and baseball, with baseball being so centered now around players coming out of Central America and the Dominicans and all of that. But if you look at basketball and football, if we took the bulk of the players away from that sport, would we spend our time and energy, black, white, green, or purple? Who would watch those games if you took the African American?
If you took away from which ones?
Football and basketball.
Football and basketball.
Oh yeah, if
I
we
mean,
took
what
away
would-
African American people, we wouldn't.
So,
wouldn't have a team.
so we just got to look at that whole situation, and we're still watching it. That's why I've always said over the last couple of months that sports, with all this going on, sports just isn't as important as it was before this pandemic and all this started. But, you know, like Willie said, it's great to have it back. It's a some sort of diversion to some of the things we're going through. But at the same time, now you have to look at some of the things that are going on in these sports that are still opening our eye. And it's good that some of the players of all races are stepping in to try to fix the situation.
Mr. Darrell playing the music on you.
Yeah, so man, that means we're wrapping it up.
You ran us out.
We got about a minute left to go. 2 minutes, no minutes. All right, so that's gonna do it for Kick the Narrative, live from Life and Family Christ Church in Lancaster, Texas.
Just became amazing. Introducing amazing Amazon deals with Amazon savings virtually on everything. Just go to bgcsports.net and click on the amazing Amazon deals page and absolutely take advantage of the deals being offered by Amazon. From the station that might need to change its name to Amazing, we are the BGC Sports Amazing Network.